Welcome to the Australian Property Investment Podcast with your host, Aaron-Christie David. Each episode, we ask an expert to share their key insights for aspiring investors to make confident property choices.
G'day, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast, where we're tackling all issues related to real estate today, and we're all about helping investors make better property decisions. And I'm joined in the studio today by Andrew Hedley. Mate, welcome.
G'day, Aaron. How are you?
Mate, I'm fantastic, thanks.
Fantastic.
For those that don't know, Andrew is a great guy, a wonderful real estate agent based down here in Thirroul, in a wonderful part of the world. And I'm sure you know that because you're selling the real estate here as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but I guess from a personal experience, when we've been looking for our family home, Andrew, you are one of those real estate agents that live and breathe the real estate, and I guess the ethos, which is it should be enjoyable, it should be a wonderful experience.
Yep.
You follow us up, for example. You check in, and it's not that salesy experience that a lot of people maybe go through.
Yes.
And that's why I thought you'd be a great guest to have here today.
Nice to hear. Yeah,
excellent, mate. And I guess what we really want to do is take buyers on a journey, because I feel, especially in my conversations, very wrongly they feel like the agent is the enemy.
Yep.
And they're always kind of being hustled.
Yep.
And I think what we're trying to do is you are trusted by the vendor to sell the property at the highest price possible.
Sure.
And,
yep.
And I guess the part there is, how do buyers actively engage a great real estate agent to get the home that they want? And that's kind of what we want to get out of our chat today. So
sounds good.
How about we kind of start with a bit about your journey? Because I know you've had a great couple of years in real estate and seen a few different parts of Australia. So do you want to kind of share a little bit about your background as well?
I've been in real estate for 13 years, which started right here in Thirroul.
Yep.
It was a very different place back then. The idea of
Tell us about 13 years ago in Thirroul, because I only know it's a $2 million suburb. Right?
The idea of $1 million sale was out of this world. So it was a very different environment back then. I actually managed to start the career right at the GFC. So started the career in a market that was actually heading down. So very different. But seen lots of change in the market, some real rises through that 2009 through the 2012 period, and then 2017, 16.
Yeah.
And then, but I've also had experience where I come back from Noosa. Nice. So I was actually up in Noosa for a few years and did some real estate up there. So been amazing to see different ways things are done, but really good to be back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess both beachside suburbs, right, in their own right. So I guess from your experience, how valuable is being close to the beach for a lot of families, do you think?
Well, it's interesting because I've actually always thought the Illawarra is undervalued. So we're starting to see some really, we just saw a $6.3 million sale, which is now, I think, finally showing the beachfront sales of what the true value of the area is, because we're only an hour from the biggest, obviously the financial hub of Australia.
Yeah.
Where I experienced in Noosa, where you're 2 hours from Brisbane, and you're actually seeing $20 million beachfront sales. So I think it's finally growing up and being recognised for what it was. For a long time, it did have a bit of the steel city sort of,
working class
tinge to it. That sort of, I think people didn't really understand truly what it offered, but it's amazing lifestyle down here.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Perfect. I guess I want to get straight into it and go, right, with a real estate agent, you're dealing with multiple buyers that are coming at you. And a number one question I'm trying to get our buyers to understand is, how do you stand out in such a cluttered market? Yeah. So I guess from your experience, when you're dealing with multiple people that are maybe calling, emailing, SMSing, whatever they're doing to get in touch with you about a property, how do the great, or maybe the successful ones that go on to buy a property will get very close to the shortlisted ones? What do they do to stand out, mate?
I think the most important thing, I think it's really important to be upfront and really open about what you're looking for, particularly, the details, the budget, and really seek out the agent at the open house. So really introduce yourself and make it your mission to become known to the agent. So we know that face.
Which is contrary, because people say play your cards close to your chest, which sounds almost counter advice, isn't it?
Correct. Well, I think there's that classic. There's been for many, many years that idea where you said, as you said earlier, real estate agent's the enemy. But these days, it's so important to know. A lot's changed, and if you know exactly what people are looking for, particularly when we talk a moment about off-market sales, then we know exactly how we can connect people. The other ways I've seen people do it is they might even put together almost like a little dossier. They'll email through a one-pager about what their looking requirements are. It's fantastic. Or I would even suggest book a 15-minute appointment and say, look, if you've got 15 minutes on a certain day, I'd love to sit down in the office. Because if we know people from a face-to-face point of view as opposed to just another number in open house, it just changes the game in terms of knowing that person's requirements and who they are.
Yeah. It's very much like how I taught people putting your best foot forward for a job interview. You do your research, for example, you send your resume, you engage maybe a recruiter, for example, and so you're a known quantity as opposed to someone going in cold.
Correct.
Very much what you're saying, which is to stand out in such a crowded market, you've got to think and act and be different as well, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah. Perfect. There's another one that I think about when I'm talking to a lot of clients is by the time the property comes onto, say, the real estate or domain, you're now competing in an open market, right? So I guess price is the only negotiating tool.
Yeah.
But we know, I mean, for you, when you're doing a listing presentation with a potential vendor to getting the property styled and photographed to the copywriting, going online and then finally being listed in that pre-market.
Yeah.
Do buyers have an actual chance to get a heads up that maybe this property is coming to the market that may suit them, for example, before it goes on to real estate or domain?
Yeah, there's a range of reasons why someone might go down the off-market trail. So there could be an owner might not want to do the work that's required. Okay. They might have a situation also where they've found a place where they've got a really tight turnaround where they need to sell. It could be also where the agent said, look, I've got a bunch of buyers that would really suit. Would you be okay if I got you through for a week and sort of had a short time on market? So there are a range of reasons, or it could even be part of a strategy for an agent where it's like, let's get through the hottest buyers and see if someone's prepared to pay the right price.
Right.
And then we won't need to go to full market. Yeah. So it could even be a cost-saving exercise as well as not going onto the internet portals.
Right.
Same reasons as I said before is if you're known to the agent, if you've had that appointment or you've been to it's really important to get out to the open homes.
Yeah.
I get people ringing up and saying, look, I've just started my search and I'm just wondering if I could be added to your off-market list, which we do. We have an email out that we send out to people, but it might even be a matter of the owner might say, well, look, just bring a handful of your best buyers, and we've got to be very selective about who we bring through. We've got to know people exactly what they want. We've got to know they're qualified. And that's what we call a hot list. Those buyers have typically as well, they've actually missed out on other properties.
Right.
And that genuinely really raises you up that list, as if you're known, you've actually been in a situation, you've missed out on other properties. So we know that if you put you in front of the right house, you will perform and actually put forward an offer if you like it. Yeah.
It's what I call active versus passive, right? There's people that are in the market
100%
that are just kind of looking around, but if the right property fell on their lap tomorrow, they probably wouldn't buy it because one, they're not organised, and two, they wouldn't know the right property if it kind of hit them in the face. But I guess that's where I'm really trying to move a lot of our buyers is get to that active phase, which is know the agent, make sure they know you exist. The next part really is then if they see the property that they love that you've got listed, how do they then engage you to go, I'm really interested in making an offer? Because that's again where people trip over, isn't it?
Yeah. It's funny because I watch, well, you can see it happening at the open house. You can see who's spending more time at the home. You'll see those that buyers, like the classic case of someone's not interested, they'll hand back the brochure. So they save the environment and walk out. See, they're not in. But then there's those people that you see spending a bit of time and then you can start to see them getting a bit nervous and anxious about what do we do next? And that's where we like to just make that easy. We'll sort of see that they're in that position. Look, can I help? And my best advice for buyers at that point, just seek out the agent, ask about the process, ask about, why is the owner selling, ask how they go about making an offer. And my response is always, talk to me now. And so in that situation, I'll normally take them to a quiet part of the house because we are seeing that. People are literally know how quick it's going at the moment. You've got to be straight off the bat and making an offer at the open house in a lot of circumstances. And particularly at the moment, it's quite common for properties to be even sold by the end of a weekend. Right. So don't expect the phone to ring on Monday and say you're interested. You've got to be in straight away and make yourself known.
Excellent. So it's very much being proactive, like taking matters into your own
100%,
hands. And then I guess the other part is to make a successful offer. What are some tips that you see or ways that people do it? I mean, I talk to clients, I'm like, well, the language that you use, look, Mr. Agent, can I put a 10% deposit into the trust account on Monday? It's like, that is very strong language that you're ready to go right now.
Sure.
How do you then take it? How does someone make an offer? Is it, they have to put it in writing? Do they give you a call? What is the next way forward once they like a property? They want to make an initial offer. What happens?
We'll always, it's actually fair trading guidelines to get in writing. So we'll always ask for it to be the best ways in an email.
Right.
And also it shows a lot of professionalism and organisation from the buyer. If the email really, points out that, this is who we are, maybe even a little bit about them. This is our current situation. These are our full names. So rather than just be, hi, Mr. Agent, this is my offer. And it's pretty laid back. Our
You're not
full
taking
names,
them seriously, are you?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, you obviously take the offer that it's there, but you'll see someone who's really organised. I'm organised. I've got my finance approved. I'm in a position to make put, as you say, put money into the trust account at a certain time. This is the details of my solicitor. So many people come to us and say, look, when they've made an offer, don't even have a solicitor. So it's really good to be that prepared to be in a position to make offers. All those boxes are ticked, and straight away you're dealing with somebody who knows what they're doing, and they're a good candidate. Because if it's a situation where you're going into a cooling off period, we want to make sure as agents that we're backing the right buyer, because that's at risk. You've taken the property off the market for 5 to 10 days, and if that buyer doesn't perform and carry through, then that's a real disaster for the campaign.
And that's exactly what I want to go to next, which is what happens in that situation. Because I know that we have clients that the agent says, no, it's not subject to finance, so you don't have a cooling off period. And you what they call a 66W. Whereas some agents are happy to give a cooling off period. What happens in that situation where someone's finance falls through, or they pull out on the purchase and they got to relist the property? What is, people think there's a problem with the property as opposed to not being privy to knowing that someone's finance fell through. So how do you then handle those conversations, and how do you bring that up without kind of spooking out the buyers perhaps?
Well, fortunately, it's really rare. It's really, 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 really rare that I've actually don't think I've ever had one in my career, but you do hear of them happening. As always, or you could have other situations where, someone's decided to pull out because they didn't like the building and pest report. The most important thing in that situation is transparency. People will immediately have their antenna up and think, what's going on here, what's wrong with the property, or what's wrong with the process. So the important thing is just to say, hey, look, this is the situation, great opportunity for you now. Somebody was given the opportunity, but they unfortunately didn't have all their cards in a row in terms of finance.
So the building and pest, I've seen before clients used to organise their own building and pest, I guess with the market being so hot, you can't have 10 different building and pest reports done. So it's pre-done when you come through the house.
That's right.
And then the question then is, well, is this prepared by the agent, and is it omitting any information? The building and pest is done by a third party. Do you want to share how that process unfolds?
It's amazing how in my career I've seen it being from the buyer that gets it done for themselves, and we would have that situation certainly pre-auction where you might have 3 or 4 building pests being done. And then eventually we realised as an industry that it was smarter to get it done and provided to buyers up front. It meant you could actually manage that process. It meant more inclusion for buyers because they were comfortable with now outlaying $500 to have a bid at an auction. And now the latest version that's come about, which is quite smart, is that you pay the building pest company does the report. This is what we've been working with. They actually will do it at a $50 charge to the vendor. So it's not a big barrier of entry for the vendor to get it done. And then the buyer pays $50 to download a copy. So I think that's been a good advancement as well, because for a while buyers would do a building and pest report before seeing a home. And then judge the home based on, I had one buyer ring up and say, look, I like the property, but I'm not going to go and see it because it's got moisture in the bathroom. I said, well, we've got to put cart before the horse. I want to see if you like the property first, and then deal with if there's issues that are there. But the latest way, $50 is the investment a buyer needs to make, And if they're successful in buying the home, they've signed a contract effectively when they sign up and pay over, they put in their credit card details, that they actually have to pay for the report, the balance of the $500 or $600 when they buy the house. So that system's working amazingly.
Yeah.
So really low barrier to entry if someone likes a home, wants to make an offer to spend $50. And the company that we use is is actually quite thorough and almost tough on properties, because then that gets buyer confidence up that it's fair. It's not we're trying to hide anything, and we know that buyers get to see those reports and know they're thorough. Solicitors are confident in them for their clients as well. So it's important from the industry that those reports are done with complete transparency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect. I guess with auctions being such a hot, everything's going to auction, or a lot of agents like take properties to auction, for example. In your mind, what is the reason that you would take a pre-auction offer, for example, or be open to it in your experience?
Yeah, look, once again, there's a range of scenarios as to why. You might even see, now you'll see the forthcoming auction is a term. That generally is saying, well, we haven't set an auction date, but we're seeing if the process creates what we're looking for. Is that premium result for the vendor? Why would we take a pre-auction offer? It's normally if there can be buyers who just do not like the auction process. And their goal is to say, well, I don't want to go to auction, or I want to avoid the competition of auction. Yeah. I'm prepared to pay a premium. So there's no point giving an average offer and saying, hey, Mr. Vendor, take the property off the market and with all the competition and interest. If someone's going to secure prior to auction, they've actually got to perform and put forward a really strong offer. Yeah.
Which then leads us to price guides, and it's probably one of the hottest issues at the moment.
Yeah.
You call it underquoting. You can call it, well, the market's paying what the market wants to pay, for example.
Yeah.
So I think there's a couple of things we'll go through this with a few questions, but legally, right? I mean, you've gone and done your vendor presentation pitch to win the listing.
Yeah.
And in that, you've got your price guides, and then the price guide, and then I guess what the vendor wants, and then I guess the number that you're kind of setting is maybe somewhere in between that, perhaps as well.
Yeah.
So talk me through, what is the process behind the price guides, and then what the vendor is willing to accept?
Well, it's a really interesting grey area. It is, but it's certainly really clear guidelines. And essentially, when we go and appraise a property, so we actually will go and do an appraisal on a property.
Yeah.
And if we win the business, we'll actually sign an agency agreement. And on that agency agreement, we have to put what's called an estimate of selling range.
Yeah.
And that can't be any more than 10%. So that's a 10% range of where we see the value.
Yeah.
Then there's three ways you're allowed to price guide. You're either allowed to basically quote that range, or quote a 10% range. You're allowed to quote the bottom figure and quote, but you can't say above anymore. So that's been outlawed. But you're allowed to quote that bottom figure, or you're allowed or basically no figure at all, where it just says contact agent on the price guide. Realistically, though, it does need to be still that range where the vendor has agreed to say, well, yes, I'm comfortable with that range.
Yeah.
So it can't be something where you're quoting and the vendor wants 20% up here. That effectively is underquoting.
Yeah, right.
So even if you've appraised the property down here, but the vendor has disclosed they want higher, you need to actually quote a price that's within 10% of where the owner will accept.
Yeah, nice.
Where it's getting a bit murky is that what some agents are doing is basically doing the first week, say we don't know what the price is going to be. They'll actually sit down, they'll get price feedback, sit down with the owner, and perhaps even bring back the price in terms of the price guide, and lower it to say this is the buyer feedback. So actually shifts the game in terms of it's not necessarily what you've put on paper, it's what the buyer feedback is, and that's creating a little bit of that sort of sense of underquoting.
Yeah, right.
The important thing is, look, it's a real tricky one for buyers. The best thing is to just be really know your market. So if you as a buyer have been out there looking for a while, and you obviously are well researched, you in a short-term period are the expert, because us as agents, we don't walk through, the 10 open houses on a Saturday, because we're doing our own open houses. So as a short-term expert, you should know where the quote sits in terms of a guide.
Perfect. I guess the other one when we do it, people, is I rang the agent and she or he is saying they got offers here, but I don't know if it's real or not. And I have to say, look, actually, they've got to have a very real offer if they're going to sell it. So can you talk to us what the legislation really says around if they've already got an current offer at the moment and how that works as well?
Look, it is. I mean, in terms of if we're going to say that there's been an offer, there needs to be a genuine written offer, so that you can't go and sort of make up offers. So that's the biggest fear buyers have, that we're creating this fictitious offer to create competition. We've had buyers in this current market ask us to provide evidence, and we're quite happy to do that. So what we've actually done is, because we've had all our offers in it via email, print the offer, white out the actual buyer's details and say, there's the written evidence of the offer.
Unreal.
So you can call out the agent on that and say, look, hey, I want to trust you, but is it okay if I actually ask you? Could you present it to me in writing?
Yeah, nice.
Ask the question.
It's great.
Yeah, you might as well. But in terms of actually disclosing offers, you can go one of two ways. You can say, look, we can't comment on where the offer is at. I can tell you ballpark.
Yeah.
We as an agency actually choose the method of just being complete transparency, because it just allows where buyer sits. They know exactly what they're working with in terms of price.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, I reckon we could talk for quite a few hours on this, because this is the real bottleneck. I think you look at pre-approvals, for example, you see them people that are coming through open homes. They talk about the shortage of properties that are on the market at the moment. I think we even had a chat earlier, which is everyone thinks it's great to be a real estate agent at the moment, but listings is where that's your lifeblood.
Correct.
But we're down on listings at the moment.
Yes.
Why do you feel that is the case at the moment? That we're seeing kind of not enough listings coming on, perhaps.
Yeah, listing volume's been down for a few years, and there's been this general environment where we've been in this for a number of years, this is pre-pandemic, where we've been told to save money, bunker down, and so generally that's people following through, because it's quite costly in terms of changeover cost, generally to buy in terms of stamp duty, and then obviously to sell in terms of agent fees, solicitor fees, etc. You're talking about $100,000 typically in terms of changeover cost. So that's one of the key reasons. And then there's that concern about getting stuck. What if I can't, because it flows on, it's like a domino effect. If there's no more stock, what if I get stuck and can't find anything?
Yeah.
And then the rental market's tight. So if you have a family with a couple of dogs, then also you're like, well, what happens then? Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why you actually get all this pressure on the market, and it just stops changing. That's where obviously there is talk about changing stamp duty legislation that would free people up to say, well, it's easier to move because it's not so costly.
Yeah. Excellent, mate. Thanks very much. So I guess it's like any parting words. So when you're talking to people that are making offers, for example, people are coming through open homes, once you're meeting, I guess, what's your parting wisdom to them to say, look, buy a property, engage in the agent? What's best in class that you've seen?
I think the key is to probably what I said earlier, just be really open and transparent, because it's not about if someone talks and shares with us what their budget is, it doesn't mean they're going to pay that for a property, because we know they're savvy enough that they're going to have a budget for a certain property.
Yeah.
So open and transparency is key. Be really, really organised is another one. So we know, as I said, who we're backing as the right people to actually put in front of a vendor in terms of an offer, and enjoy it, have fun. I mean, I think that's the other thing. Don't take it so seriously. We have a lot of fun at our open homes.
I can vouch for that.
And once we've had a bit of that fun, you break the ice and build that rapport.
Yeah. It's not salesy. It's just going, hey, look, mate, we're spending our Saturdays here.
It.
We might as well have a bit of fun while we're spending our Saturdays trudging around, right?
100%. Yeah. So then suddenly you see that sort of other side to people's personality. Yeah. And when you build that rapport, you actually want to help people.
I agree, mate. And I think that's definitely that ethos of helping is where you guys have kind of shone in the market as well, mate. So credit to you guys and Kane at One Agency and Thurul. But mate, I want to say thank you so much for your time.
Been a pleasure.
Mate, I probably have these conversations 90% of the day. So I think for people that are having a chat to us, I'm like, have a listen to a great agent and kind of take the words of wisdom from Andrew as well. If you're looking to buy, be proactive is kind of what I'm hearing as well, mate. So thank you so much.
Pleasure.
I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Aaron.